Good morning, honorable members. Mrs. Nikkerk, are we ready to start?
Good morning, Chairperson. Yes, you may proceed.
Are there any apologies?
We've received one apology on behalf of the department from the CFO, Ms. Maimuna Abrams, Chair. Nothing from members.
Thank you. Honorable members, thank you very much for availing yourself for the tabling of the budget by Minister Ivan Meyer and his department. First, let me welcome them, Minister Ivan Meyer, HOD, Ms. Johnstone, CEO of Entities, CEO of Wesgro, Ms. Wenger, CEO of Atlantis, SEZ, Mr. Cullinan, and CEO of Saldanha Bay Industrial Development, Mr. Sitole, and chairpersons of the entities present today, and members of the public and officials that are here present. Good morning. My name is Noko Masipa. I am the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Economic Development and Tourism. With me is Ms. Van Niekerk, Procedural Officer. I'm going to give members an opportunity to introduce themselves. Over to you, members.
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning to everybody on the platform. My name is Nomi Nkondlo. I'm a member of this committee. Thank you.
Morning, Good morning, Chairperson. This is Dirk Wessels, and I am a member of this committee. Thank you.
Morning, Chair. Khalil Bankes, member of this committee. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson. Dave Bryant, member of the committee.
Morning, Nama French Mbombo, thank you.
Did all members introduce themselves? Okay, correction, members said CEO Ms. Wenger, Ms. Ronald Stana. My apologies on that one. With that introduction being done, I will hand over to Minister and the entity and HOD to introduce themselves and proceed with the presentation. Over to you, Minister.
Good morning to the Chair, the committee, and the officials of the Department of Economic Development and Tourism, as well as the entities. Thank you for that correction, because I don't like to have members in the committee that doesn't belong here. So thank you for that correction of my CEO of Wesgro, Ms. Ronel Stander. She is excellent, so don't confuse her name with anybody else. She's a person in her own right. Thank you for acknowledging that. I'm not going to waste time. I'm going to hand over immediately to my HOD.
Good morning, Chair and honourable members, and to the Minister and to all of the team, indeed, as well as my entities. I'm going to ask, perhaps for efficiency's sake, for everybody to introduce themselves. My name is Joanne Johnston, Head of Department, and perhaps in alphabetical order, starting with my team and then moving on to Wesgro immediately afterwards. So alphabetical order, please. Akila. Kila, alphabetical order.
Yes, morning. I'm Akila Razak and I work within financial management.
Thank you. Chantal.
Chantal van die Kerk. I work with the skills development unit.
Okay, thank you. Is this also put on your camera when you do introduce yourselves? Cheryl.
Good morning, I'm Cheryl Julius. I'm the Director for Strategic and Operational Support. Thank you.
Courtney.
Morning, everyone. I'm Courtney Titus, the Assistant Director in the Office of the Head of Department.
Thank you. Dejan.
Good morning. My name is Dejan Halim. I'm the Director of the Strategic Execution and Coordination Office.
Thank you. Ms. Faye.
Good morning. Faye Darcy. I'm responsible for the portfolio of regional and local economic development.
Thank you. Fernal.
Good morning, Chairperson. My name is Fernal Abrams. I'm in the Cape Catalyst unit. Thank you.
Thank you. Digan.
Good morning. My name is Goodwill Dingan. I'm responsible for the agri-processing sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Herman. Herman.
Sorry, I had my camera on and not my sound. Herman Jonker, Industrial Development Unit with oversight of Freeport Saldanha and the hydrogen implementation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ilse.
Good morning, Chair and members. My name is Ilse van Skalkwyk. I'm the acting DDG in the department, looking after all our priority sectors and the 3 entities and trade investments, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we got Melissa.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Apologies, my camera is not working. I'm Melissa Parker. I head up the Provincial Skills and Partnerships portfolio. It's part of the Skills Development and Innovation Program. Thank you.
Thank you. Nizam.
Nizam Joseph. I head up Program 6 Skills Development. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have Olivia.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Olivia Dyers in the Digital Economy Program at DDET. Thank you.
Thank you. Rahima.
Hi, good day. I'm Rahima Lockday. I'm Director Skills Incentives and I'm in the Skills Program. Program 7. Thanks.
Thank you. With Robert LeBreton.
Good morning. I'm Robert LeBreton. I'm in the Management Accounting Unit.
Thank you. Tim.
Good morning, Chair and members. I'm Tim Powell, Chief Director, Digital Economy. Next year, we will be known as Technology and Innovation.
Thank you. Tran.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tran Chipea. I am Director Research. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With your permission, Chair, I'd like the entities to introduce themselves, starting with Renal Stander.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Committee. My name is Renal Stander and I'm the CEO of Westgrow.
Is it just you, Renal? Is there anybody else in your team that you also want to do so, perhaps?
Good morning, Chair. My name is Sanders Wicklam. I'm the CFO. Thanks.
Okay. And then
good morning. Good morning, HOD, Chair and Minister and all members. I'm Khadija Daris, the Chief of Staff at Westgrow.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll go to Tola next from Freeport.
Good morning, members. My name is Tola Stole. I'm the CEO of Freeport Saldanha. I'm joined by my colleague Herman. Good morning to the Minister as well and colleagues.
Okay.
Herman.
Good morning, Chair and members. I'm Herman Boontjes. I'm the CFO for the Freeport Saldanha.
Right. And then we're going to move to Matt from Atlantis SSZ. Matt? Okay, I'm not seeing his name up. Wahira? Wahira? Okay, I think they may have a technology problem because I can see their names, but we obviously can't hear them. So, Chair, that's us introduced from the department and the entity side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, HOD. You can proceed. I do not know if it's going to be you or it's going to be somebody else presenting.
It is myself. I will be supported by Robert LeBreton, who's standing in for the CFO. But Chair, with your permission, Brendan Adams has got his hand up. I'm not quite sure if there's something that he wanted to raise.
Mr. Adams, is that a point of order?
Morning, Chair. Morning, Minister. Morning, everyone. No, I just had some issues logging in, so I just wanted to note that I'm present. Thank you.
You are noted, Honorable Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I think with your permission, we have distributed a infographic, and I will just simply take the committee through the contents of that infographic. So one, we have a main budget of 597 million Rand, which reflects a 21% increase in our budget from 25-26. And I think the budget reflects the roles that DDAT is playing as an implementer, influencer, and a supporter of the Growth for Jobs. It recognizes that we implement and deliver, but that also we have to support and assist our colleagues in other departments, given our role as the G4J custodian. The second thing is you'll see from the budget that there's a recalibration of how we do our projects so that we can reach scale, impact, and to make sure that we actually get the scale and impact that we need to as per the G4J targets. First thing up is that there is a shift in the program structure, and this is mainly to make sure that we have alignment to the Growth for Jobs strategy and our plans. So you'd see much more easier reflection of our programs to the priority focus areas sitting in the G4J strategy. The second is that there is enhanced reflection with the national sector budget structure. And so we've reintroduced some of the terminology so it's easier to align to what's happening at a national level. And then the third is also we've reorientated the way that we've grouped some of these sub-programs so that we can better enhance and leverage synergies. So the main changes are in program 2. You'd see that we've reintroduced economic empowerment, and this, in going forward, will reflect essentially the township strategy, which we will be launching within the next couple of months. And as we bring on the capacity as well as our projects as it relates to the township economic strategy, you'd then start seeing the indicators and some narrative flow from there. Program 3 is essentially the branch that ILSA currently is acting in. And there you'd see the regrouping of a number of the sub-programs. So again, that we can see synergies that happen between the trade and investment as well as green economy, tourism, and the tech and innovation subsectors. Program 4, we've introduced governance because this is really where the oversight of the entities actually take place. And in Program 5, the major shift here has been spatial economic coordination, which previously sat in Program 2 and was called, that was essentially our LED sub-program. But we've shifted it to Program 5 to reflect that there's strategic alignment that we need to get from our research and development sub-program, and then also to ensure that we land the G4J in the municipalities. So it's really around how we provide strengthened support to our municipalities and local government structures. And then Program 5 again reflects a better alignment to the Growth for Jobs strategy and plans. The budget allocation is effectively one. You can see increase in Program 1, which is the administration. And this really reflects early retirement. We don't have a lot within our department. There's just really one candidate person that is doing early retirement, but also reflects the provision of our critical staff capacity, and also reflects the investment that we're making in training and the support or development of our staff, as well as for ICT. So we really are looking to implement our digital DDAT in going forward and leveraging AI and what technology can offer to make us more efficient. Integrated economic development services does see increase of 21%, but again, this is really around, and we'll expect to see a mobilization of more resources as we land both the MSME strategy as well as the township strategy. And so the increase you start seeing would be really around the prep for the new projects, and some of the current projects will still remain relevant going forward. Trade and sector development, the increase is really around earmarked funding that we've got, and it also reflects the transfers that we provide to our entities and some of our infrastructure projects. Business regulation and governance, the increase, again, it's around capacity, but also given there's been massive demand in our tribunal. And so this is to accommodate for some of the capacity additions that we require there. Economic planning, this also is just a reflection, but also the investment we're making in the systems of the overall G4J IT platform. And then, of course, skills development has more or less stayed static, but that's because they've been quite innovative in leveraging external funding. If you had to do this according to the economic classification, the first two, compensation of employees as well as goods and services, essentially is current payment. You can see that there has been significant increases, and then transfers as well as capital payments for capital assets. And that provides just a breakdown to see it's fairly even. We only have 26% in terms of compensation of employees, and the rest is essentially around how we use our budget to deliver our commitments for the G4J strategy. The earmarked allocations for our entities is that you can see there has been increases in both. So our entities reflect essentially 34% of our total budget. Cape Town International Convention Centre is earmarked as not necessarily going to the CTICC, but really the money has been allocated so that we can undertake due diligence and assessment for possible disposal of our shares. And so this is essentially the project prep money that we require to make sure that we are making informed and evidence-based decisions. The additional earmark allocations, it's extensive. So one, it's around the tourism safety program. 3 million is really pays for overtime for the LEAP officers that are based in our tourism hotspots. It's been an incredibly effective program because not only does it improve the safety of people that visit the sort of tourist attractions, but also these people provide ambassadors. They are ambassadors in terms of guides and give, from what we understand, with the exit interviews of tourists at the airport, is this has had a really positive effect on the perception of safety for our tourists. Drones is a continuation of the project we started in terms of the investigations. We're looking at setting up a regulatory sandbox. We have a competitive edge with regards to this particular industry. We not only would actually possibilities around manufacturing of drones, but also in terms of how we can deploy them in agriculture, in logistics, and as you can see, I was going to say something about the defense force in terms of what's happening in the Middle East, but I shan't. But essentially is that drones is a potential industry, not only for manufacturing, but also to assist the competitiveness of a number of other industries. Employment and enterprise development outcomes. This is a new way we are currently exploring. So this is a pilot in terms of the allocation, but really not to shift away from sort of immediate outcomes, outputs, which is I assisted exit business, but really starting to look at whether we can start supporting projects that look at outcomes, both in terms of entrepreneurs, but then also in terms of employment. So this is a shift in terms of how we do things. Export Accelerator Program, it's a significant investment given the fact that our minister's priority is really around market access, and we understand that growth can only come really from exports. And so this is really how do we diversify the set of exporters that we have, but also diversify the markets that we are sending our goods and services to. And given what's happening in the world, this is critically important in order for our economy to stay resilient. The G4J transversal system is really around how we are able to develop IT systems that not only track what we're doing within our department, but across all of the G4J departments. And this allows for one, not only better line of sight and data capturing, but it also allows for better synergy across the various departments, particularly when we implement transversal projects. There's also a bit of money for project prep so that we are able to conceptualize projects appropriately, again, to have the scale, reach, and impact that we are aiming to have. Growth opportunity coalitions, this is really around what are the growth opportunities in terms of some of the sectors and how we can better support them, not in terms of the department delivering, but actually partnerships with private sector and the quad helix. And this, again, it's really around how we can reconceptualize the way that we can have impact through leveraging of private sector. Port and logistics performance support is continuous. There has been some good small wins that has had some catalytic effect in the Port of Cape Town. But this also starts to look at how we look at a logistics strategy to support our Department of Mobility so that we can actually start addressing some of the systemic issues and build resilience that if the wind blows in the Port of Cape Town, that we have other options to give certainty to our exporters. Tourism growth initiatives, this is really around how do we support and start really building our destination development products. So it's how do we give new experiences, for example, rail tourism, how do we build some of our products so that tourists have more places that they can visit across the province. Growth coalition and ecosystem, tech ecosystem enablement. This is really, again, around how do we partner with various tech verticals, and some of the ones that we are looking to enter into partnerships with include around AI, biotech, games development, creative industries, and then climate tech as well. And those are just a few of the partnerships and coalitions we're entering into. The Investment Summit Continuum, Standing Committee members did attend the Investment Summit last year, but actually the real work happens post the event. And so this is really around how do we actually take some of those projects that we have, the 400 billion, and make sure that they reach financial close and they actually land, so they obtain the investment. And so the conversations that were started and initiated through the investment event, the summit, it's really around how do we mature that, how do we deepen that and strengthen it so that there is deals that can land as a result. Green hydrogen, we have 3 Capes, so Eastern Cape and Northern Cape and the Western Cape have an MOU about how we can actually land that, and that has to do with things like skills, coordination, a joint common investment plan, because you generate the energy in the Northern Cape, you need to bring it through to the East, the Western Cape, etc., etc. And then finally, the Just Energy Transition Plan. The money is really around how we actually implement the plan that we've just developed. The priority allocations, there's still focus on our BPO and tech sectors. There's still growth opportunities, and it's generating significant employment for our citizens. We have funding, of course, through the CETAs, and that's particularly for the skills development projects. So that's linked. We have the early retirement and voluntary exit program. As I said, it's quite a small relative to other departments. And then we have funding for the acceleration of our growth opportunity, growth for jobs, projects and programs. And this is really just a recalibration this year, financial year, to help us for next year, where we're looking to really expand and move with speed. Thank you, Chair. Done.
Thank you, HOD. Minister, do you have some closing remarks on the presentation before I hand over to the members to ask questions?
Chairperson, I think I'm ready to receive some questions. I won't waste any time, but I will make some concluding remarks at the end of the meeting. I just would like to perhaps raise one matter. I'm having a foot and mouth disease job meeting. Let me see here on my timetable. I think it starts after about 11 o'clock there around. So if I can be excused around about 11 o'clock, I would really appreciate it to attend to that other very serious matter, as you would know, as the chair of this committee. But I hand back to you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Minister. Honourable members, the vote 12 is from page 605 to 690 of the budget blue book, estimates of provincial revenue and expenditure 2026. So, honourable members, the department is ready to take hands from you. Can I see by raising of hands if there are questions from you members directly seeking questions with regards to the budget being tabled by the department? Over to you, members. I see only Honorable Ngondo. Over to you, ma'am.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning to the Minister once again and his team. And thank you for the presentation and summary given. Chair, a couple of issues I would like to understand. I think maybe if we start in page 606, one of the things that one is trying to understand is how through this department that I'm assuming, and I think that the HOD has reiterated that it is a custodian for GO4J. Now, one has asked the question about how are we industrializing, our provincial economy. And I'm trying to see in this budget where exactly, outside of technology, outside of the existing projects in Atlantis SEZ and Freeport Saldanha, where are we, what exactly are we doing, and are we budgeting, to ramp up industrialization of our provincial economy so that we ensure labor-intensive industries that brings more people into productive work, and sustainable and decent jobs. So I'm interested in understanding that particular work, but not just, in generic terms, but in budgetary terms. Where is that? Where should we see those type of projects? Because one also sees that I think the department speaks of almost a 400 billion deal book from the last year Western Cape Investment Summit. And that is still work in progress because those are still deals, they're not necessarily having been landed. So without also the information about the nature of those deals and what exactly is happening there, one does not necessarily have a clear sense about that. The second one, Chair, is that one would be also interested to understand that in the G4J, for example, if you look at page 607 under organizational environment, in the G4J delivery, which is expected to emanate from the department's strategic plan, which has been aligned as its 5-year strategic plan, I'm hearing that there is an organizational review that is taking place. And I'm trying to understand HOD also as one of the longest people that has been in this department. Since HOD solely, the last HOD that was there, to yourself, how many organizational review have you undertaken? And also with the new strategies that have been put in place. And I'm actually worried because I get a sense in this budget that you are talking about a review that is coming, but you have already, merged or collapsed some programs into others. I'm not sure how that happens if the organizational review, is still going to take place, and what is the implication of managing your labor relations, but also, how you move staff and people in accordance to the new responsibilities. So that is also one area I'm trying to understand. And what is it, given that in the last financial year, we would have had this particular department having 28 vacancies, with Program 1 actually having 13 unfilled vacancies at the time. So one is interested to understand now with the, I think it's about 11.4, if I'm not mistaken, the budget on COE for this. Is it a budget of some of those unfilled vacancies, which were 28 in the last financial year, into this? Because one recalls departments, including this one, speaking about reallocation of funds, meaning moving those funds that were supposed to have actually ensured that we fill those vacancies into this financial year. So can I get a sense around that particular issue in terms of COE? Also considering that you have a review, and when you have a review, amongst others, I am not sure, you may clarify, if there would be any assessment of some of the functions which can actually alter the current structure, but also the actual functions of people. And if you already now talking about a review, I'm not sure when is this review, whether it has started, but in the book, it is it is spoken as if it is still to take place. But I was just, I think one of the directors was introducing himself as with a name now, which is going to be changed by the end of the year. So I'm really trying to understand that HR implication of that particular process. And my last one on this one, Chair, is one question around the LED units. Because one have seen, I think in the Department of Local Government book actually, that LED is referred to this particular department minister. So I am not sure the way in which this particular department actually works with LEDs officially. Do you have work, and which unit will be focusing on working with the LED units in the municipalities, where actually a clear understanding whether do we have functional LED units across the 6 regions and district municipalities? You know, are they functional? What are their budgets in line with the G4J implementation and success outcomes, you know, by 2030? So do we have, and who and which function would be dealing with that? Thank you. Thank you for now, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ngontlo. I just wanted to ask if there are questions, honorable members, that you want to pose to the minister. I'll really be happy to allow you to ask questions that really minister have to answer, so that he can answer those questions before he departs. But before I hand over back to you, HOD, I just want to say we welcome the increase on Saldanha Bay IDZ company's increase of budget. I see it's gone from the 24 million to 33 million, and that is really welcome. And I think really this is an important area, because green hydrogen energy, I think, is probably going to be the way to go going forward. Seeing the Middle East issues right now, I think they are really putting spotlight back on the alternative energy, you know, because I think we are going to have a problem with regards to oil as a result of the Middle East issue, and obviously it's going to put a lot of strain on our economy going forward. I just thought that I just want to welcome the increase in that regard of the 33 million, which equates to about 38.6%, and that is really welcome, Minister, and the department. Over to you, Minister and HOD.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Honourable Member Ngontlo. The HOD will speak specifically because there were some specific questions, specifically dealing with manufacturing and industrial policy. This is a matter that is of serious concern for us, beyond, as Honourable Member Ngontlo said, beyond the SEZ and the IDZ. We're also familiar and working with the City of Cape Town because they have now also launched a manufacturing support policy, which intends to expand support to all 33 industrial areas in the metropolitan area. They also plan to prioritize non-financial assistance to streamline approvals and active investment facilitation in industrial zones. And this main purpose of this policy of the City of Cape Town, for example, is exactly what Honourable Member Nkondlo said, is to focus on sustainable jobs for the industry. And that's why we're also focusing very heavily in terms of our skills development on technical skills to support the industrialization. Honourable Chair, you also, in your latter part of your input during this meeting, you refer to the situation in the Middle East. There are serious implications. I firstly want to say that this is a matter that I think needs and warrants a further discussion of this committee, but since this is a budget committee meeting, we can flag it for another day, except to say that we have an excellent director of research, and I trust her work. I recommend her work. I not only read her work, I also study her work. And so for this Thursday, I have now arranged that he and the team give me a thorough briefing of the situation in the Middle East. And I want to thank the department because I have asked that we brief the cabinet about the situation in the Middle East, the conflict and the war there. And for how I sit now, I will wait for a thorough briefing, but except to make a few preliminary remarks as to how the situation in the Middle East will impact the Western Cape economy. And Honourable Member Nkondlo has referred to the G4J. For now, I see the following things. I think in politics, we say don't waste a good crisis. And therefore, I don't think we must waste this good crisis. We know the oil prices was recently at about $80 per barrel. It went up to about $100 per barrel. And I see that people in the Iran specifically has signed a signal that it may go up to $200 per barrel. But we have to see how that play out. But one thing is certain, it is on the increase. The second major issue, I think, for us, it is trade. We are having excellent trade relationships, particularly also with the Middle East. We know the Middle East has about 700 million people, and that certainly will impact on our trade. And we will look at the numbers as soon as the research come to my table on Thursday. Well, there's no doubt in my mind that we will see food inflation. We have already seen it in some other parts of the world, and I think it will also have an impact on us. The fourth issue, Chair, is the whole issue of the global supply chain management and the global logistics, because we know that what is happening in terms of the ships that channel about 20% of the world's global oil. So we will see some global supply and logistics and the way it will impact on that. And we must never forget, lastly, Chair, is the vulnerable people in South Africa, the vulnerable people in the Western Cape, the poor people. That's our target group in this discussions. I think they will see significant impact on because they spend a higher proportion of their income on disposable income on food. And so we will see a definite impact on that. But there might also be some positive things. We are investing in tourism, and we know that the Middle East and the Europe is major tourism areas. Maybe this is now a need. No tourist would like to travel in an area where there's missiles and bullets flying. So maybe this is an opportunity for us to offer the Western Cape and South Africa, and in fact Southern Africa, as safe and cheap and reliable and exciting tourism opportunities. And secondly, Chair, given the fact that we have the main issue now in the war, the way I see it, has to do also with the impacting on energy. And I think with our green energy revolution, I think we stand in a good situation. Perhaps we need to expedite, put more money into the green hydrogen revolution. We must push for faster development in this field because the people in Europe and in the Middle East will soon become more and more dependent on green energy and alternative energy. So I think there is some initial risk. I think one of the major risks, particularly for our products, because our rail network is not functioning properly. All the products that we are producing in the Western Cape, about 80 to 90% are transported by trucks on the roads. And we know that they use diesel, and the impact of that will be severe on the economy. So those are initial remarks. But as I said, this Thursday, I will get a thorough briefing by my HOD and my director in research, and we will certainly also take this to the cabinet to say, what are we doing and how are we protecting the citizens of the Western Cape against this impact? This impact is going to be massive. This is not a 2-3 day war as the US initially anticipated. This war is going to be a long war, and it's already 3 weeks, and people are having an appetite to continue, and this will severely impact on not only in the global economy, but also in the economy of South Africa. But we have a unique opportunity, and we need to take advantage of this to position ourselves in this particular regard. Thank you, Chair. Back to you.
Through you, Chair, may we respond to the specific questions to complement what our Minister has just said?
Yes, please proceed. Thank you, HOD.
Right. So I'm going to hand over the 3 questions that Honourable Member Nkuntlo listed. I'm going to ask Ilse to respond to how we're industrializing our economy. Of course, the department really is about how do we strengthen comparative and competitive advantage. The G4J strategy is also very clear that we're sector agnostic, which actually means that we have scope to support all of the sectors and the industries that provide promise in terms of growth and in terms of jobs. So I'm going to ask Ilse to please respond to that and provide more detail.
Judy, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Member Nkondo, for the question. So in terms of the industrialization approach, it's an extremely critical question. The country's been going through quite a shift from national government, specifically in terms of DTIC, who was the holders of what we term the IPAP, the Industrial Policy Action Plan. From 2024 to mid last year, they went through what's called the Industrial Policy and Strategy Review process, which we took part in, which impacts 2 things. It impacts both their levers as well as sort of their incentive programs. So what national government does, the Western Cape isn't in competition, it's how do we actually augment it. So from a budget perspective and what we're doing in this case, because we've had a big surge in terms of where industries are being deindustrialized. So there's a lot of industries that are at risk, and in particularly the manufacturing sector, or in sectors and industries. So we were working on an industrial policy position paper for the Western Cape. We're not finished. We're going to the next phase at the moment internally. But currently, a key aspect where you can find it from activities within our budget, primarily in Program 3, which is both from our export focus, which is how do we support businesses to be more competitive and comparative, programs like our Export Accelerator, our ESEP, work that we're doing, and we can't, I know you said to exclude it, but the SEZs play a key role specifically with new actions or new policy focus areas like green hydrogen, etc., as well as a lot of the work that's happening in terms of our green economy. Those are all elements and budget items that supports our approach in terms of how do we create more competitive and comparative advantaged industries and value chains that are then able to absorb labor. So the question with regards to the investment summit, yes, of those 400, we're tracking them each and every investment. A lot of them are going to be landing in these particular industries. We can't make the final announcements. We're waiting for the declarations, but we've had about 6 that are nearing financial close, which is close to 4 billion rand already. And we're seeing that the the work or the how it's linking to that, especially I think two were in manufacturing, two were in green economy, etc. That's going to add investment into those industries. Once again, that will have an impact in terms of absorbing labor. So industrialization, we are keeping ties with regards to what national government is doing from a policy perspective, but our levers are very much in terms of what is our mandate from a provincial perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ilse. And some of the sectors that we're also looking at would be cosmetics, meta electronics, aerospace, and then even clothing and textile offers a substantial promise, because at the moment the Western Cape actually exports to the rest of Africa. And so we have significant competitive edge. And I think when we talk about competitive advantage, you're talking about what are the factors of production and how can we improve our competitiveness and cost effectiveness of that, so that our industries are able to actually export more. The question with regards to the organogram and our capacity is something that is really close to our hearts. I'm going to ask Cheryl, who's responsible for not quite HR, but SOS, to respond to that. But just to say that, one, we are looking at filling the current vacancy rates. And so when we go through our recruitment process, we finalize it. We would have a 20% vacancy rate, which is a substantial shift from the 40% that we had previously. But that also we've realigned the organogram already. So, and that's why you see the budget changes. This is really now how we reorganize what we currently have. And we've gone through a process with our Department of the Premier OD unit to say, how do we start shifting with the capacity that we already have and with the posts that we already have. There is additional that we are looking at in going forward. But it's really around realignment of what our organogram reflects. The specific question around how many organizational redesigns that we had, I have just got a couple of months ago my 20-year service certificate. So yes, I have been with the department for a little while. And this is the second major one that we've done since Solipuri was the head of department. So there was a big one in 2015, 15 years. And this is essentially the second one. So it's been 10 years subsequent. And now we have the growth for job strategy. It gives us refocus, a reason and a rationale to refocus. But Cheryl, do you want to maybe answer some of the specific issues that honourable member raised?
I think the only other part that's still outstanding is the part about the shift in the budget structure that was done. And maybe just to raise the fact that, so as much as our organizational structure is there, the budget structure is something different to the organizational structure. And what the HOD reported earlier was linked to the shifts in the budget structure that was done. And so at this particular stage that on the process that we're busy with is now identified implication on the on the review at this particular stage. So maybe just to know that the budget structure that HOD reported earlier is different to the organizational structure, as much as it's linked, but it is a different structure that HOD reported earlier. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. And then finally, I'm going to ask Faye to respond to the LED question. The municipalities and our economy's health is very closely tied with the municipalities. And so the shifts that you see from LED to spatial economic development was to enable a much more expansive perspective and approach to how do we support our municipalities in the province. But Faye, could you add, please, and respond to the specific questions that the honourable member raised?
Yes, actually. Good morning, everybody. Member Nkondlo, as you would remember, the Program 2 had a component called either municipal economic support, but essentially looked at servicing both our municipalities as well as looking at local economic development across the province. So that included the 6 the 5 districts and the metro. What the unit is moving towards now, spatial economic coordination, is, as the HOD said, a more expansive approach, but also a far more strategic approach. And essentially, it will rest on 2 legs. One big component looking at plans to empower municipalities, and the other big component landing on how to pursue prospects for economic opportunities in regions. If I can start with the second one first, pursuing opportunities in regions, there are 3-4 legs that this will rest on. It's looking at establishing economic opportunity based on what DDAT is prioritized for spatial targeting. It's looking at establishing where the economic opportunity lies for municipalities who are busy with spatial targeting, looking at what support is needed to realize those opportunities, and then implementing the initiatives. The portion you referred to in your question focused more on the municipalities and how we empower them. And so the department's essentially taking 2 approaches to that. It's both on the proactive side, looking at systemic ways to address some of the issues at local level, and then also reactive, where we become responsive to requests coming from the regions. In both cases, remember, we just would need to say, we do 2 levels of assessment with the municipalities through the course of the year. We are about to embark on the IDP assessment process. Municipalities table their IDPs. We assess and look at and review the LED sections in the IDP, and we give them feedback on that. We also do the proactive municipal economic maturity assessments. We've worked through the districts. This year, Central Karoo is targeted for hands-on support. And you may be aware that COGTA National is now adopting our municipal economic maturity assessment process nationally. It's going to be rolled out across all provinces. And in fact, in collaboration with COGTA this year, we are looking at hands-on support with Kanaland, Central Karoo, and also Swaziland municipality. Off the back of those assessments, we determine where the gaps lie, what improvement measures can be brought on board, and then customized capacity building support is given. Measurement occurs before and after, and so we are busy tracking the municipalities in terms of how they are doing. And then just briefly to touch on, very much the department plays a role in the IGR and the ecosystem support in relation to municipalities, and that goes from both up provincial, but particularly through our national processes. We're fortunate enough to be able to share quite a bit of our learnings in the Western Cape on the national platform, and it's good to know that those are being accepted at national level. We are also looking into really driving public and private partnerships at local level. And this involves essentially local private sector business and local authorities like the municipalities or agencies in the localities, actually sitting down and working on local level solutions based on what these circumstances are bringing to the fore. HOD, I think that covers it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, HOD. HOD, congratulations on your 20-year service, and thank you for serving the residents of the Western Cape diligently for the last 20 years. On behalf of the members, I just want to say once again, congratulations on your 20-year service. Honorable members, another round of questions. I see the hand of Honorable Nkondlo. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. Joining your congratulations and your spirit of always giving these congratulations, I'm sure you should do also to us as members, and congratulate us for always being in your meetings and dealing with issues of budget as required. Chair, I think perhaps it may be a resolution around, I think, what the minister has raised in ramping up industrial capacity of our provincial economy, with a response from the DDG and the HOD. because I think we're going to have to really, as the minister said, look at how, you know, we find immediate opportunities within the crisis, because this crisis definitely will leave us as a developing economy, you know, more unstable, similarly to what we experience with COVID, if we do not do that. And the National Industrial Policy, I am sure, is an industrial policy that must be implemented across provinces and local municipalities. And the innovation that the Western Cape has always, you know, lauded itself about requires of it to operate, you know, with agility in that case. So I'm just saying maybe we need in the committee to maybe at some point get the department to help us understand, you know, its industrial program. Because what the minister is raising, which is happening in the city of Cape Town, is what you would want to see being driven, you know, from the G4J, a sincerely very intentional and massive industrial program that looks at our manufacturing capacity. Because the truth of the matter, HOD, with the jobs, actually, one of the things that we are always going to be speaking about, the province, when we look at its jobs, job creation capability, we always find this notion of loading the jobs that we see in the quarterly labor force surveys. But obviously, when we ask the question about the nature of not the nature of those jobs, the more detail about those jobs, obviously, it's very difficult to see whether those jobs are as per our direct. Can we be able to, do we have an instrument to see whether jobs from our direct interventions from G4J? I'm not sure whether we do have that capability, HOD, at this point, where we could say all this work that we are budgeting for now that aims at improving competitiveness, you know, through also the red tape reduction unit and other interventions by the different programs, whether those who could actually be able to track them and say these number of jobs in the economy actually are emanating.
Honorable members, did we lose Honorable Ngondlo, or is it myself?
I also lost her. I would like her to come back.
I would definitely like her to come back because I also want to congratulate her. Oh, she is back. Honorable Ngondlo, over to you. We lost you for a brief moment. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Congratulations in advance, Comrade Pepperson. Thanks for the congratulations in advance. I'm happy to do my job. So, Chair, I think what I'm trying to understand is whether are we able as the department to look at and build a capability that helps us track the investment that we're making on jobs as this province versus the national economy and what it contributes, so that if, as the recent jobs that we actually look at have actually been recorded, the 95,000 jobs. Can we say out of these 95,000 jobs, what are the jobs that would have been coming from our investment of G4J? Because it's important, you know, from an output and outcomes to track what is your rand investment and other, you know, elements thereof. But also, one of the challenges, especially at the lower LSM, is the fact that whilst we talk about some increase, you know, in the different sectors, there is a challenge of wages that are not necessarily growing almost equal to the very performance of the different industries from a job and growth point of view. So that affects cost of living. And for me, that becomes important to industrialize because we can at least be able, you know, to inspire growth that is inclusive, but also growth that actually can be felt at a household level, and it tempers with the wealth distribution and asset base of those that are in the lower LSMs so that they can be able to contribute to the economy through taxes and others through their consumption capability. So for me, that is important, because if we consider what is in page 633, about the national priorities, of inclusive growth, but also tackling the high cost of living, because that's one issue that we know we are struggling with. And if we look at that page, the key assumptions there, cost of living adjustments are being kept at 4%. And I'm asking myself, Minister, because you are correct. I mean, the war in the Middle East, as I corrected my language from Iran, from your advice in the in the budget vote of agriculture, the war in Middle East is going to have serious impact, and inflationary effects on developing economies like ourselves. So we are not going to be cushioned from it. So the truth of the matter is that one gets worried if we talk about capping cost of living, for this financial year, the next financial year, given those developments, because it's like we are oblivion, to how these things are going to be affecting somebody in the shelves, in the retail shops when they're buying food. I mean, we also have been having problems of cost of property prices increasing, so the fuel price that you were referring to now is going to be felt by many households and local industries. So it becomes important, indeed, this conversation, and it's urgent. It's no longer just important. It is urgent to the extent to which we expand the envelope, in as far as agility, in as far with our industrial strategy of the province. So I think that is my issue that I am raising, notwithstanding what is being raised. The other question, Chair, in page 613, I want to understand the alignment of the green hydrogen work in Saldanha with Atlantis SEZ, being its understanding its green tech focus, as an SEZ. What is the relationship between these two in terms of how they are working? And safe to say, Chair, one is also very worried, whilst appreciating what you have just also congratulated in your sort of a spirit to congratulate, the departments. One is actually worried around the increase also of the like of Westgro. And I'm not saying they're supposed to be getting, almost the same increase percentage-wise as the three entities. But one is looking at how, with the increase in the Freeport Saldanha, how are we ensuring also we ramp up, in the budget of Westgro, particularly because Westgro must help us in ensuring this growth that we require, at that horizon of the G4J. So it's just one issue I also wanted to pick up in this book. Safe to say, one of the observations that I'm making, HOD, is the fact that across this increase in the main, one is seeing it as an increase in goods and services. If you look at it, I think it's goods and services across the programs, from the lowest of around 50% to the highest of, I think, about 200%, if I'm not mistaken, in the consumer protection. And for me, that is actually, I would want to understand what is this goods and services that we are buying, as this department that we seem, to not be having internally. I saw when one looks at classification that in the main, this money, some it's going, you see in some programs, more than 100% increase in advertising, and I'm not sure why. Perhaps you could explain, while some you would see in contracting or contractors. I don't know what is contractors actually, different to consultancy. Maybe you can explain also that difference. So if you can explain that to me, that would help me. The last one, Chair, on this one, the R&D. When I look at the resource and research and development budget, would I be correct, HOD, to say actually the 16.3 budget of research and that is going to research and development sub-program is actually around 3% of the entire budget. That has increased by 11%. And again, in this turbulent economic environment, is it a sufficient a budget for research and development, given that your role as this department is really being the custodian of the G4J strategy, which must help us be very much responsive, amongst others, to an issue one has been raising? I see you colleagues talking about township economy, but when one asks what exactly is this township economy, even in the program you have now included as economic empowerment, I'm not sure whether you are paying for these strategies that must be concluded or they are going to be concluded in the next 3 months. What exactly is that? There is a huge informal economy that this department, in my view, is just neglecting. And we've been raising this matter from the time of the HOD solely, to now yourself. And it's like, it's being done, because this is a question that is raised by the committee, will come and say, we're doing this boutique project here, this isolated thing there. And you are not, tapping into one of the biggest space of economic participation of the marginalized in the mainstream economy that are lingering in that economy. They are selling things for themselves. They are not enabled. Actually, I spoke about this in the budget vote of agriculture. Minister is aware of this. The bylaws that are not responsive. Once again, we've been speaking about this in the informal trading space. Again, with the informal farmers, information we get even in George and Neisner, the bylaws there are not helping informal farmers. With this FMD, we've got a biggest risk of those informal farmers who've got their livestock that are just roaming the streets in the townships. And yet, once again, this issue of informal economy seems to evade, or the department is just choosing to ignore, to bring this very important sector. And if you need any work on this, there is, I think Gigi Alcock has done a lot of studies about, the potential of this informal economy. And even here in the Western Cape, that potential is there, but it's being ignored. And I could say now deliberately, because one cannot continue from HOD solely up until to date. We speak about informal economy, and the only thing that you get is just one-liners, 2 sentence, 1 million here, 2 million there. It is just not acceptable as far as I'm concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Ngondlo, and really thank you for the work that you're doing in serving the residents that elected you, and for serving really diligently on this portfolio. I really welcome your input and your contribution. And obviously, you are a veteran. You have been on this portfolio, longer than most of us. And we really thank you. We admire your determination of ensuring that this department really delivers to its mandate. Really, thank you very much. Over to you, Minister. I see you are ready.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to honourable members. I think the honourable member makes a valid point about the industrial strategy and the agility, so we take that point. But she raised a very important second point. I often speak to my colleagues when they speak about the GNU. I tell them that the GNU is a government of national urgency. And honourable member Nkondlo hit the issue right on its nail in terms of urgency. I think we are now facing a situation, and she used the analogy and the comparison of COVID-19. And I think COVID-19 taught us we need to respond to things urgently. And I think one of the other urgent matters that I want to put before this committee is the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. There's 1 billion people on this African continent. These are our immediate partners. If you look at the figures, just in terms of agriculture, not only from the Western Cape, but countrywide, 66% of South Africa's exports, agriculture-wise, went on the African continent. We have also seen that in the figures of 2014, there was $13.7 billion US exports of all agricultural products from the country in 2024. The figures are now out for the same export, in other words, agriculture exports from South Africa for 2025. And there's an increase from $13.7 billion to $15.1 billion. And I think we have to look more aggressively, urgently, as Honorable Member Nkondlo said, to our colleagues on the African continent. And my recommendation, no, I'm not a member of this committee, but I can recommend to this committee to consider. So there's the difference to recommend and recommend to consider. So I recommend to consider that the Standing Committee also undertake a study visit to African countries with the highest economic trade and mutual beneficial opportunities for both that country and for us, because I don't want the Western Cape to succeed. I want Africa to succeed. So there are very countries that are making significant progress also in the issue of the informal economy as raised by Honorable Member Nkondlo. So I put it before this committee, not for discussion in this meeting, because we cannot do that, but I can whisper in the ear of Honorable Member Nkondlo, and I can whisper in the ear of the chair to consider undertaking a study tour and advise us on their return. These are African countries that have great potential for trade and investment and partnership in tourism, because I think more and more we have to look to the African continent, given the global geopolitical instability. I put that before you. Thank you, Chair.
Minister, thank you very much for your recommendation. We will definitely take that into consideration in our deliberation. HOD, are you ready?
I am. Thank you very much, Chair. And to Honourable Member, thank you very much for those really, I think, powerful points that you've raised. But just to follow on from what Minister Meyer has just said, with regards to the industrialization, we agree with the Minister. This is something that we are focusing on. I think the good thing is that the G4J strategy gives quite a lot of flexibility and agility, because it also emphasizes diversity, and diversity in terms of the industries that we focus on. So it emphasizes that we have to diversify. Agriculture and agri-process is incredibly important. But we do, if we want to be resilient, we do have to diversify into new opportunities so that we can have not just jobs and low-paying jobs, but I think sticky jobs. Jobs, because we're offering certain specializations, it's difficult for any company to sort of move offshore because of the kind of skill sets that we provide and the competitive advantage that we provide. So one, it emphasizes diversity of industry, but it also emphasizes diversity of markets. And the crisis being as it is, both in terms of America and its tariffs, but also the Middle East shows how important that is. The other thing is also it emphasizes diversity of some of the input costs. So if you look at energy and our reliance of oil and electricity, the green hydrogen actually starts to move us away from just one type of energy source. And that also provides confidence to businesses. So that's the one issue around the industrialization. But the thing about the job creation is also it talks about business confidence. So if you look at what the department does and the West Cape government actually does through the work of our minister, who's our best ambassador with regards to our economy. But it's about how do you boost business confidence, investor confidence, and then also consumer confidence, because they know that there is growth coming because of the efforts that we've made around investment promotion and also boost export promotion. So it's really around good business confidence. And sometimes it's difficult to sort of say, when you say the impact of this one initiative resulted in X amount of jobs, often it's a combination of different interventions that lead to the job creation, given the fact, businesses will start employing people if they're confident that there is sufficient market growth. So sometimes when you look at impact studies, you can't just look at it in a siloed way. The air access initiative that, for example, Wesco does incredibly well is also a function of how we develop tourism products and how do we stimulate other kinds of things in terms of exports, because obviously it's about the belly of the plane as well, but also how we develop products so that there's a demand for that in terms of the air cargo. So usually it's a combination of interventions, but this to the committee is something that we will be looking at in going forward, is doing impact studies, but also the G4J system and the logic models that we've adopted is going to give us the information and data that allows us to then start looking at the impact of the various interventions that we intend to do in going forward. So that's the one thing. I'm not quite sure if Tsakang may want to add a little bit more to the work that they're going to be doing around the impact study, Impact Program 5. But the other issue again around the R&D is very, very important. R&D basically is the one thing that results in economic growth. But the budget that you see there of the 16.3 million is really an investment because we've made an absolute commitment, and Minister is absolutely passionate about being evidence-based and data-led. It's really about making sure that when we make these decisions and we're designing our projects, is that it's based on evidence and data, and so that's also our investment in making sure that we have the necessary information so that we are able to design, develop, implement, and monitor our projects appropriately. The budget also is not a reflection just of what our department requires, but it's also investment that of data sets that is utilized across the province. And so it would inform, for example, the reports that the Minister spoke about in the Middle East has come from the data that we've purchased, but then also we use the raw data to analyze the implications for the department and for the province. With regards to, I'm going to jump around, the green hydrogen is vitally important and has an impact on both not only just Atlantis, SEZ, and the Freeport, but also Westpro. So it's important that we work collaboratively and in concert so we can maximize the various mandates that our entities have. And perhaps I'm going to give Tola and Matt an opportunity just to speak a little bit about their green hydrogen efforts. And I'm not quite sure, Ronald, if you also want to come in, you may also want to talk about how important it is that you do get additional budget. But if I could hand over to the Freeport just to speak to the green hydrogen issues.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, HOD. Perhaps I'll start off by just providing an update on the work that's been done to date in advancing the Western Cape Green Hydrogen Strategy. That included the undertaking of a master plan phase 1, which has been completed. It was undertaken by the CSIR, and that work has indicated the scope of the opportunity, specifically in defining that opportunity within the Saldanha hydrogen hub. And that has led us to also identifying what should be done in respect of phase 2 of that master plan. We are moving closer to the consummation of phase 2. As that yesterday we had a meeting with KFW who have approved funding for that purpose, and we refining the scope of phase 2 with them. The ultimate objective being to be more specific or more nuanced about what must happen in order to drive the implementation of green hydrogen and break ground with the projects that are there. It is common knowledge that the market dynamics in the green hydrogen space have changed somewhat. So our phase 2 analysis is going to make sure that we focus on the opportunities that are immediately realizable in the localization, in the local industrialization opportunities in terms of decarbonization, for example, in the green fuels in the shipping industry opportunities. You're already moving iron ore to ships that go to Rotterdam from here. They need to be greened in terms of IMO regulations. In the green steel, green DRI opportunities with Saldanha. With Saldanha Steel, and there's a lot of work that's happening in that space, but there still remains a valid value proposition for green hydrogen, for the export of green ammonia, green methanol through the port of Saldanha, and therefore a lot of the industrialization to happen here. I'm just cautioning that, you know, what is required is a more nuanced approach now that the market dynamics have somewhat changed. And when people hear the story about the hype is over, it's not to suggest, in our view, what we want to emphasize, that the green hydrogen proposition has like fallen out complete at all. The opportunity still exists and is being pursued, but we're being nuanced about what it is that we want to be able to convert in the immediate term. Thank you.
Matt and Renal, I don't know if you want to add to that in terms of some of the green hydrogen opportunities that you are pursuing and the work that you are doing. I think also what's important is, and this is Minister was saying, talking about how you use a crisis to leverage opportunity. And I think in the green hydrogen space, just the vulnerability of the entire world, given what's happening in the Middle East, highlights the importance of green hydrogen. We need, the world needs alternative sources of energy, and nothing quite like the Middle East war has highlighted how important green hydrogen is, particularly to Europe and those countries that are heavily dependent on oil. Matt, do you just want to talk about some of the opportunities you're pursuing around the green hydrogen space? And then perhaps Renal could also come in and then also talk to the importance of having more budget and what you're doing in terms of your planning and strategies, Renal, to make sure that we're ready for the additional budget. Matt?
Yeah, HOD?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah,
Chair?
before Matt start, I think just on the question of hydrogen energy, maybe just to touch on how the three departments are working together to achieve this particular objective. I think that's one element that I felt is very important to bring in the equation on this question. Thank you. Over to you, HOD.
Thank you very much. Matt, and then just maybe briefly, before Renal talks to it, then maybe we could also get Herman just to talk about the ecosystem coordination that we do. But Matt? Okay, we're still having a bit of a problem with Matt.
Thanks, HOD, thanks, Chair. I won't say much. I think Renal and Kola are the best place to talk about green hydrogen. I think from an Atlantis SEZ perspective, we are very much in support of the leading role that Saldanha plays in driving the green hydrogen strategy. Where we see the SEZ coming in is around the potential components that may support green hydrogen manufacture, for example, electrolyzers. We also look to other opportunities in supporting programs around skills and skills development that may be required in the green economy. And also the fact that green hydrogen, I think, will require something like 60 to 70% of the cost of any green hydrogen project is in the renewable energy. And so we see that our focus is on supporting renewable energy production across the board in whatever way we can. Imports from China make actual direct production of wind and solar very difficult, but there are various other components within the value chains that we are targeting for in the context of the South African Renewable Energy Master Plan, which we are very much part of and work in alignment with. So, for example, targeting key aspects within that would support renewable energy deployment and also the expansion of the grid including things like pylons and also the cabling and other components, substations, switchgear, and so forth that would be critical within a renewable energy context. So thank you, Chair. That's all for me.
Thank you. Renal and then Herman Jonker. Renal?
Did you want, actually, did you want Herman to go before me?
Okay, Herman goes first. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chair, and HOD. I think in answer to Member Nkondlo's question about coordinating amongst the entities, this is again a nail hit on the head. Right from the start of even developing the strategy, we were hosting a coordination work group. This coordination work group on green hydrogen for the province sits every second Friday, and we have Wesgro, Freeport Saldanha, Atlantis SEZ, as well as support into the international funding world by our international relations unit, and into how we shape the budget for hydrogen by our provincial treasury colleagues. So that work group sits every second week, and we have a very detailed way of setting out which portions of the hydrogen strategy is implemented by who. The three legs of the strategy are: one, institutional coordination and getting the environment right, and that is the focus of the department. The second leg is on infrastructure and getting the hydrogen production hub right. That is the focus of Freeport Saldanha. And the third leg, which is a little bit in the outer years of strategy implementation, is scaling the opportunity and building value chains. And I think that's where the manufacturing opportunities that Matt mentioned in components of the likes of renewable energy and the electrolyzers come in. And Wesgro has been leading the charge. I'm sure Ms. Thunder will touch on that, on our investment promotion leg of the strategy. In fact, the World Hydrogen Summit is coming up in May. Even last year's World Hydrogen Summit, Wesgro took the lead on putting the value proposition of the Western Cape out into the market. There's a lot more around coordinating with the Northern Cape and the Eastern Cape around the Three Capes agreement, which is also part of the department's work, and also where we bring both all three entities and the department together. Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it short like that for now.
Thank you very much, Herman. With your permission, Chair, I'd like to hand over to Renal now, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, HOD. Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, Minister and the members. Perhaps it's important to say that I just want to concur with the HOD that we do need to have more consistent funding in the green hydrogen space. So we got funding in FY24, but we haven't had funding in FY25 or 26. I want to share with the committee some of the work that obviously we have done. We were very instrumental in finalising the green hydrogen strategy. Very importantly, we also have been positioning the green hydrogen, the Western Cape green hydrogen economy globally through the Green Hydrogen Summit, and often the Western Cape is the only entity representing South Africa. So I think that has been quite key. We haven't, so the next one comes up, and we'll probably have to fund that through other work. In addition, we've been working with GIZ to ensure that we build capacity in the green hydrogen value chain across the province. We've also been building relationships with some of the project developers, including Celica, Enetrag, Atlantia, Phelan, and then of course, P&E SA Benguela has been put on hold. There's a big element also of working with the different off-takers, because you can produce your ammonia, but if you haven't got off-takers, so there's a lot of work that has to go into the development, and some of these things have to happen concurrently. So they don't happen sequentially, because while you're busy developing your ecosystem, you also have to be working with your off-takers. So personally, I feel like we're being hamstrung as Wesgro by not getting funding, to continue the work that we've done over the last 3 years. I think it would be a shame to have to slow that work down. So HOD definitely need more funding in this regard. Thank you, Chair.
Indeed, but I think also the intention is, given some of our targets for tourism and exports, Wesgro does need additional budgets. And this is something that in going forward, we will be making appeals to Treasury as the fiscus allows us to see if we can better support them. And Wesgro is working on their various plans so that we can provide a stronger, even stronger case, because they have got, certainly in the country, considered to be the best investment promotion agency that the country has. With regards to, or one of the best anyway. I think just to move on, there was one question around goods and services and the difference between contractors and consultants. So consultants are the ones that provide specialist sort of expertise that we contract in because we don't necessarily have the capacity, or it's for short term. So if you look at, for example, our Cape Town International Convention Centre, we are needing to bring in transaction advisors to assist and guide with regards to the possible disposal of the shares. And so they would be consultants that we bring in to provide that kind of specialization advice to us so that we can make informed decisions. Whereas contractors tend to be, so consultants is that, contractors tend to be non-core kind of services that we require, like cleaning services, artists, performers, etc., that we bring in for event, etc. So that's essentially just the difference between those two. And then I think the final question is really around the informal economy. We are as passionate as the standing committee members around the informal economy, mainly because it does touch on what the Minister was talking about, the importance of people that live in our communities and that they see the difference that the G4J brings. We don't necessarily see the township as poverty traps, but more of untapped potential. And there are two elements to it. So one, there are informal businesses there, yes, but there are also informal businesses. The major challenge is how do we tap into the potential and the talent that exists in those communities where they are essentially separated, mostly spatially, but sometimes also in terms of the power dynamics of the sector that informal businesses is in. And that's the key thing. So it's not just doing one, there's an issue around supporting the capability and the competencies of those businesses, their skill sets of the businesses, like you do with every entrepreneur, irrespective of where they're based, but also about shifting and embedding them more strongly within the sectors that they tend to occupy. So an example would be the informal truckers in the logistics industry. If you looked at some of the narrative that we had shared around the truckers, the informal truckers tend to be very disempowered in the logistics sector. And so it's how do we actually improve them? And part of it is really around ecosystems. Is how do we help them to become a little bit more better organized so that their voices are amplified when they have these negotiations, discussions, talking about prices, etc. And in the same way, with the food gardens that we have, is how do we give those informal farmers better access to markets? And these are all the dynamics that we are hoping that we could land and systemically address through our township strategy. And very soon, the Standing Committee will be getting an invitation to participate and input into the draft strategy that we are currently working on. We having the final draft for consultation at the end of this month, and then looking to actually launch it by at the very latest June this year. So, Honourable Member Nkondlo, we've heard a Standing Committee. But I think it's not just us responding to the Standing Committee. I think it's something that our department is actually quite passionate about. And we are moving away from boutique to something that is holistic and all-encompassing. Thank you very much, Chair. I think we've responded to all of the questions. Through you, Chair.
Thank you, HOD. I think the question of Wesgro or increased funding is in your hands. You have made a commitment to ensure that you petition the provincial treasury to get more money. So CEO Stana, you are represented by your HOD at the provincial treasury in that regard. So I hope that is in order. So, honourable members, you have got an opportunity for last round of questions before I open the questions to public. If there are members of the public who wanted to put questions to us as members, and obviously we will pass them on to the department to answer if there are any questions. Can I see by show of hands if there are any members who wants to ask further questions? Going once, going twice. Oh, Honourable Gondla, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, maybe we must start with the last one and the comment that you have made around the funding. Maybe this is a conversation also of the committee, because remember, a budget allocation is the function of Parliament more than the executive. The executive's role is to provide based on their evidence what are the funding areas that through the fiscus are needed to be prioritized. So I believe that this is an issue that we are supposed to be discussing even ourselves, because I think the issue of funding in these difficult times is going to be an issue. As we saw last year, through National Parliament, that National Parliament was able to change National Treasury priorities and their own decisions that they would have brought to Parliament. So one is really, aching to see the day that we actually give effect to this concept of the three spheres of government, where the legislature, part of its responsibilities is to effect changes in the budget that we are supposed to go and approve during the budget day. And here is an opportunity to do so. Because if you consider page 636, in this budget, and we look at what is in the budget of the three entities, I think it's a conversation that if indeed we were managing these processes of budgets differently, we would have had this conversation before and being able to say, are these numbers sufficient if we look at the 8.51% increase to the three entities that must actually help drive our economic growth in the province, notwithstanding other activities that are being done, through other sub-programs. So my issue with what has been raised by Westgro, because Westgro there, if you look at it, is receiving a 4.33% increase in its budget. And if you look at it from 2022, we've had these very marginal increases into these entities. And it's understandable if you look at the Freeport Saldanha, it's understandable that you'd have this 38%, and you look at Atlantis, we have about 3.2%. So the 8.5% increase into their budget is the three entities, and whether that allocation, is concomitant with the responsibility and the burden in as far as the growth projections that we had made, and we've actually put our stamp as this Parliament to say we support the growth for jobs with the projections, of double-digit growth, up to 2030, 2035. So I'm just saying it's important that we consider this, and amongst that, in the legislation, both in the national, in the constitution, and even the provincial constitution, we are allowed, Chair, there is a conversation that we have not concluded about the instrument that we as a provincial parliament, we must effect changes. That has not been concluded, which would have allowed us to say, as this a budget committee, we are making an a direct intervention in this particular budget to consider in the provincial reserve funds if we cannot actually ask for this money that both the HOD and the CEO is asking for, towards Westgro and any other. So I'm saying the instruments are there. So I think we must not kick the can down the road. We must take responsibility as the committee and do what we are allowed in Constitution to do, in as far as these kind of trying times that we're sitting with. I think moving from that point, I want to say in lieu of that, Chair, I'm worried, HOD, in page 656, if when we consider, again, another program that I feel is underfunded, skills development. This program is having 0.83 increase of its budget, almost a 1% increase of its budget. And if you consider there in page 656 summary of payments and estimates, you would see that the three programs there, the priorities, I'm assuming maybe they would explain. They're talking about the type of sub-program 1, basic education ecosystem, workplace skills development, post-school ecosystem support. Perhaps one question I would like to pose to this program specifically is whether do we have priority skills that are linked to the growth for jobs, as articulated also by the CEO of Atlantis SEZ. Because if we're talking about hydrogen, a hub in Saldanha, those are the skills we're looking at, and I'm not sure to the extent that that work is being done through that and through the Atlantis SEZ to ensure that we are also ramping up the skill supply side, for that hydrogen hub, let alone the big work that is being done. Actually, we're seeing something happening in the city of Cape Town, of this massive waste management or recycling plant that they've established. And we know, if you talk about townships, and I beg to differ, HOD, townships are poverty traps. As a person who grew up in a township, nobody would tell you that I'm actually aiming as I grow up to remain and stay in the township. Actually, the first thing that every person would want, I want to move to the suburbs if I can. So it is a poverty trap until a deliberate spatial design or innovation is done to disturb the apartheid that have created townships. At this point, the traditional townships, are poverty traps. And therefore, it's important for me to see to the extent to which actually the township strategy you are talking about, is being budgeted for, and it's being looked at differently. Because when I look, and again, go to page 643, in page 643,